In every horror movie, there's a monster that feels a little too real, too alive, too familiar. But sometimes, the scariest monsters are the ones born in the real world. Before the films, before the sequels, before the blood-soaked legend, there was a doll, a real doll. Tonight, on Historias de Miedo, we revealed the disturbing true story behind the toy that inspired one of the most terrifying characters in horror, Chucky. A doll linked to curses, whispers in the night, and events that still remain unexplained. Turn off the lights. Make sure you're alone. Because this story moves when you're not looking. Before the world met the famous killer doll from the movies, something strange was already happening in a quiet home in Key West, Florida. A young boy received a gift, an old-fashioned doll, handmade, stitched with strange buttons and a stiff, unsettling grin. The boy named it Robert. At first it seemed innocent, a simple companion for a child, but soon, the innocence began to fade. Footsteps echoed at night when everyone was supposed to be asleep. Whispers crawled under the boy's door, too low to understand but too clear to ignore. Objects in the house moved without explanation, vases toppling over, toys rearranged, doors creaking open on their own. Neighbors started reporting strange things. They claimed they saw the doll, staring from an upstairs window, its blank face turned towards the street, even when no one was home. The stories spread through the town, transforming the simple doll into something infamous, feared, and eventually, something that had to be locked away. And decades later, it became the twisted inspiration for something even worse. Witnesses who saw the doll up close described its face as if it were changing when no one was watching. Its smile seemed wider, its button eyes darker, almost like empty voids. Visitors to the home reported unsettling phenomena. They'd walk into a room and feel a sudden, unnatural cold spot. A wave of nausea would wash over them, with no explanation. But most unnerving was the constant, prickling feeling of being observed, even in an empty room, as if invisible hands were just inches away. Some people said they heard the doll speak, mimicking voices it had heard around the house. Others swore they heard the pitter-patter of tiny footsteps wandering the hallways at night. And the boy, he blamed everything on the doll. Every accident, every broken object, every cruel prank that terrified the household staff. Whenever confronted, he would point a trembling finger at the doll and repeat the same chilling words every time Robert did it. As the boy grew older, the doll remained by his side, an inseparable and unnerving companion. Friends started avoiding the house. Visitors left terrified, sharing stories that only added to the doll's dark legend. Some claimed the doll turned its head slowly to follow them, its lifeless eyes tracking their every step across the room. After the boy grew into an adult and eventually passed away, the house was sold. The new owners discovered the doll in the attic, sitting in a small chair, as if it were waiting for a new home, waiting for someone new to play with. It was eventually donated to a museum. But the nightmares didn't stop. In fact, they only got worse. People who mocked the doll, who laughed at its story, reported strange and terrible luck, car accidents on their way home, sudden inexplicable breakups, job losses, unexplained illnesses that doctors couldn't diagnose. The curse seemed to follow them. Visitors now know the rule. You must ask permission before taking a picture if they forget. They often return or write letters begging for forgiveness. The museum receives these letters every single week, letters that begin with the same trembling words, "Robert, I'm sorry." Years later, when Hollywood filmmakers were searching for inspiration for a new horror villain, the eerie stories of this cursed doll resurfaced. The legend of Robert had become a dark piece of American folklore. The filmmakers didn't want to recreate it exactly. They didn't want to use its name or its appearance, perhaps out of a superstitious fear. They didn't want to provoke whatever malevolent force was said to be attached to it, but they took the core idea, the concept of a child's toy-turned vessel for evil, and twisted it into something more violent, more chaotic, more unhinged. They imagined a killer trapped inside a toy, a doll that could not only move but could also think and feel rage, a toy that wanted blood. The result of that twisted inspiration became one of the most iconic and terrifying villains in the history of horror cinema. But the real doll, it remained locked away in its glass case, never smiling, never blinking, yet always watching. To this day, workers at the museum refuse to be alone with the doll, especially after closing time. Security cameras set up to monitor the exhibit have reportedly captured subtle, unexplainable movements, a slight shift in its posture, a slow tilt of the head, a change in its painted expression that wasn't there before. Visitors who pressed their luck describe hearing it tap on the glass from the inside, a faint but persistent sound. Some say that as they stood there, they felt a cold puff of air on their neck, as if it breathed. A few even claimed the doll appeared in their dreams later that night, whispering in a rough, childlike voice, "Play with me." And each year, the collection of apology letters grows larger, a pile of papers filled with desperation, from people all over the world begging the doll to stop whatever curse began after their visit. Something that felt personal, targeted, something that followed them home. Some say the doll is harmless, a simple antique toy with a frightening reputation built over a century of ghost stories. Others believe it contains something ancient, something that was woken up long ago and now feeds on attention, on fear, on stories just like this. So tonight, as you finish watching this video, if you happen to hear small footsteps in the hallway or a soft scratching on your bedroom door, don't panic. It's probably just the wind, probably. Thank you for watching Historias de Miedo, and remember, never disrespect a doll that has already been given a soul. Good night. Hey everyone, welcome back to Historias de Miedo. We all know Chucky, the killer doll that has haunted our nightmares since the 80s. But what if I told you that the real story behind this iconic horror character is even more terrifying than what you saw on screen? Before Hollywood got its hands on the idea, there was a real doll, a doll that whispered in the dark, that moved on its own, and that brought a wave of unexplained sinister events to a family that just couldn't escape its grasp. This is the true story of Robert the doll, the chilling origin of Chucky. The tale begins over a century ago in Key West, Florida, with a young boy named Robert Eugene Otto, or Gene for short. Gene was given a one-of-a-kind 3-foot-tall doll stuffed with straw. He named it Robert, after himself. At first they were inseparable. Gene would take Robert everywhere, but soon things started to get strange. Gene's parents would overhear him having conversations in his room. They'd hear Gene's voice, and then a second, deeper, unfamiliar voice responding. When they asked Gene who he was talking to, he would always say, it was Robert. Neighbors reported seeing the doll moving from window to window when the family wasn't home. Gene's toys would be found mutilated and thrown across his room. Whenever his parents confronted him, Gene would tremble with fear and repeat the same chilling phrase, Robert did it. As Gene grew up, Robert the doll was eventually locked away in the attic, but his influence didn't end there. Years later, a new family moved into the Otto house. The young daughter found Robert in the attic and claimed the doll came to life, that it wanted to hurt her. The family reported hearing maniacal giggling and footsteps running around the attic at night. Today, Robert the doll resides in the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, encased in glass. But even behind glass, his reign of terror continues. Visitors and staff have reported all sorts of paranormal activity. Cameras and electronic devices malfunction in his presence. Some people have even captured photos where his expression seems to change. It's said you must ask Robert's permission before taking his photo. If you don't, you'll be cursed with bad luck until you write him a letter of apology. The museum has a whole wall covered in these desperate letters from people all over the world, begging for his forgiveness. The story of Robert is so compelling, so genuinely disturbing, that it directly inspired the creation of Chucky. The filmmakers took the core idea of a haunted doll given to a child and twisted it into the slasher icon we know today. But the truth is, the real story needs no Hollywood exaggeration. It's a mystery that still baffles paranormal investigators and a legend that continues to send shivers down the spines of anyone who hears it. So, what do you think? Is Robert just an old doll with a creepy story, or is there a truly dark entity attached to him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this dive into a real-life nightmare, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more terrifying stories every week. Thanks for watching.